Matt, thank you so much for joining us. This meeting is certainly unlike any other in MRS history. Please tell us about your welcome message to attendees of this meeting.
Well, thank you. I want to welcome everybody here to the first ever MRS virtual meeting. We really owe a lot to our meeting chairs. In particular, we owe them every year, but in particular this year, they were faced with a huge task because they organized the meeting and then they had to completely reorganize the meeting to make a successful virtual meeting. So I want to thank the spring meeting chairs, Ching Kao, Myung Kim, Rajesh Naik, Jim Rodnelli, and Hung Wang. And I also want to thank the fall meeting chairs, Michael Flate, Mike Rowe, Sabrina Sartori, Prasad Shastri, and Chungmin Wang. Now, I'm very excited looking at the program for this meeting, and I think you will be too. Now, one of the things that we tend to do is we get into very specifically narrow focus on our own field, and we don't look at the broader picture, and we kind of lose the sense of wonder and enthusiasm that drew us to the science to begin with. And if you listen to some of the highlights, if you go to some of these award talks and plenary talks, you will be amazed at the sort of work that people are doing. Now, I also want to remind you, the meeting registration comes with a free MRS membership for 1 year. That'll get you discounted fees to meetings, free access to MRS journals and internet content. And as long as you're a member, you might think about maybe there's some way you'd like to volunteer and get more involved with the MRS. We'd love to have you join. So thank you for joining us in this meeting.
Tell us about the effort to move these meetings into the virtual space. What went into creating a virtual meeting?
A lot of work went into that. And a lot of people worked on that. So this started once we decided to do it virtual, a number of things needed to happen to get going. So the headquarters needed to do extensive vetting of various providers to make sure we could get a secure and reliable meeting. And they needed to understand what kind of mix they could get of synchronous talks and asynchronous, meaning pre-recorded talks. And once that was sorted out, then we could hand it over to the program, to the meeting chairs and the symposium organizers, because they had to rearrange their whole programs to adapt to this new type of meeting. Then finally, all of the presenters needed to record and upload their talks. So if that sounds like a lot of work, I think it really was. And I really want to thank all of you who were involved in all levels of making this possible. So thanks, guys.
What are some of the highlights of your term as MRS president, and what are some of the challenges on the horizon for the 2021 president?
One of the things I mentioned, that we're doing governance reform this year. Well, we're drawing up the plans for it, but she has to actually make it work next year. So that's going to be a challenge. I'm sure she's up to the challenge, but that has to happen. We're going to, as an organization, we're going to need to return from the virtual world, and that's going to be a balancing act. And that's going to be a challenge to figure out exactly how to balance the demands of safety and the urgency to return from the virtual world. Then finally, something that has been slowly percolating for a few years now is we'd like to move in the direction of having our spring meeting differentiated from our fall meeting in terms of the meeting content. And that's an ongoing challenge. It's one that I think that we can do as an organization. I think it will make for great meetings. So that's a sampling of things I think that need to be focused on next year.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great meeting, folks.